And welcome into your local election headquarters on KRK.com and Fox16.com. I am Mitch McCoy. As you see here on our website, we are talking with all of the candidates running for the Little Rock Board of Directors, and we don't want to waste any time. We want to get straight to our next interview. Tell us a little bit about who you are and tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Mitch, and I appreciate y'all having this forum. I'm Alan Bubbas from David's Burgers, and I'm running in this race for city director because I love Little Rock. And we've chosen to live here, and we've chosen to grow our business here. We love our school and our church, and we love Little Rock. And I've got a lot of kids, and I want to see them grow up in a great Little Rock. And I'm fearful that we're moving in the wrong direction. I see more dissension and more fighting, and just focus on really the wrong issues oftentimes that are not bringing people together. So I'd like to bring my business experience from David's, and we have stores all over the city, and I'm sure many of you have been in those stores. And you know, if you come in, we have people of all races and colors that work for us. We're very diverse, and we have diverse leadership as well. And you come in, and it's a culture that I'm proud of. It's a culture that we believe that our cornerstone belief is valuing people and treating them like family, where, you know, we have an attitude that when you come in, we want you to have a little bit better day than when you started. So leave there with a smile, leave there feeling a little bit better. And I'm hoping that I can help bring some of that attitude to City Hall and help maybe turn the tide there and change some things there with how we deal with people. We're not always going to agree, but we can respect one another and we can work together. And so I'd like to bring that business experience with David's, whether it's been working with our employees, developing, training, managing budgets, doing developments, all of these things with working within the community, serving the community with humility, and bringing that same type of tone and tenor to City Hall is what I want to do. I also wanted to tell you a little bit about my background prior to David's. Grew up in Russellville, Arkansas, and ended up going to Vanderbilt University and graduated from there with a triple major. Went on and got into a banking career where I worked for about 7 years in finance. Had a lot of experience in commercial real estate development, highest and best use of properties. Went on from there and served on the Planning Commission for 6 years, as well as completing my law degree at Bowen Law School at the same time. I didn't always have dreams of being a burger man, but you know, my family's in the restaurant business, and I just found that I was drawn to hospitality and serving and loving people. And I'd like to bring my experience and my background and really serve the city and help bring people together.
Well, and I think that some folks may be interested in from your business perspective, talking about the economy. So we'll get to that here later on. But I want to first start with a topic that, if you're a citizen in Little Rock, you know there is a crime issue in this city. It's been an issue for years. What is your opinion on the relationship between the Little Rock Police Department and the community? What ideas do you have to improve community policing, and how should the crime rate be addressed?
You know, I think we often get caught up on issues that are national issues, and we focus on things that we're fighting about rather than things that we agree on. And so you see these issues with the police come up, and you know, in my opinion, if you've got a problem in police, we need to invest in it. You know, I think we can all agree that we need better training with our police. We need to safeguard that some of these issues that have happened where the police have been so ruthless with Black people, that we've got to safeguard that doesn't happen in Little Rock and try to prevent that as much as we can. And we've got to do that with better training. We've got to do that with better selection of our police officers. And so we've got to invest in our police. We've got to do all that we can to bring our community together with our police, because the goal of the police should be to protect and to serve. And that needs to be done with fairness. So that's going to need more investment, not less. And so, again, I think sometimes instead of looking at what an obvious answer is, we oftentimes can get caught up on the national stage, whether it's not funding the police and not investing in that. And that's a difference between me and some other people, you know, whether we're looking at better ways of accountability or safer ways to apprehend a suspect so that some of these things don't happen. things to do to give our police a little less fear in the community where they act more appropriately, I think would be good. So, and I think almost everyone would agree on that. But again, we get in these talking points where it ends up being a big fight. And I don't have a political agenda. I am not looking to be a politician. I'm a businessman. I'm a dad. I love my wife, and I just want to see our city do better. I'm not trying to go on from here and run for another political office. As a matter of fact, I haven't enjoyed the political process. So if you elect me and get me elected, I'll probably be here 15 years working on issues with the city because I love Little Rock. And again, when I served on the planning commission for 6 years, I really enjoyed it. And I sat in the same chairs that our board members sit in. So I feel like I have a level of comfort in dealing with the developers and helping getting things done. So I think that's going to be a difference between me and some of the other candidates that are running. You know, if I'm going to meet with the police chief, I'm going to try to figure out what we can agree on and do better at, and do what we can to try to bring healing to our community. As far as replacing the police chief, I don't know enough yet to know that. I know that I am not satisfied with all the fighting, the lawsuits, and everything else. And ultimately, the police chief has to help heal that. And so I need to learn more about what's going on there and get more directly involved in that. But I feel like I can be a solution maker for the city in the police area.
Well, and you kind of opened the door for our next topic. And you say you're certainly not a politician. Some would say that there's politics being played inside of the police department, of this apparent discord with all of these lawsuits. And you look at really just the command staff in general, it looks like, you know, some would say it just looks like everyone's suing everyone. The police chief facing multiple lawsuits from current former city employees, the police chief in his individual capacity suing Little Rock employees over civil rights violations. I was going to ask you, how do you plan on addressing these apparent issues inside the police department? But it sounds like on day one you'd be on a fact-finding mission.
Well, I think you can't come in assuming you know everything, and I think that's important to come in and listen and hear what people have to say. You know, in order to move forward with deals and get progress done. We're on a board. You know, I'm not going to come in and be king. I mean, that's not the way it works. When you're on a board, you have to work with the other board members. You have to work with the mayor. You have to work with the other people in the community to get things done. So you've got to listen to people and hear what they have to say and get buy-in. And then, you know, if you need to make decisions, you work with your board to move and make some changes if you can. So I think listening is important. You know, I think, you know, if you look at this, a lot of the root cause is culture, having a poor culture, you know, not having good relationships. And when you look at relationships, what is the key foundation to every relationship is trust. And, you know, so being honest, being a person that, you know, when you say something, you don't have another agenda in mind, not having, you know, other things that are pushing you or motivating you outside of just what's best for Little Rock. And I'm going to be honest and sincere in that's all I care about. I'm not looking at something else. I don't have anyone outside of Little Rock pushing me to do things or do anything else. I just want to see Little Rock get better. And I think that can help calm fears. I think that can help build trust, build relationships that help us get better. So, you know, the steps of removing the police chief are, you know, going through a process. And so as a board member, I can't do all that all in day one. And I'm not saying that I would, but I think that's something that you have to work through, and you have to see where everything is, and then work together, build relationships, you know, and set boundaries. This is what's required of a leader in our community and what we need in our police force. And how do we do that? And how do we get better? And then we ultimately have to hold people accountable.
So
and
sorry, go ahead.
But, you know, obviously, I would hope that people in the community could see that our restaurant, see how diverse it is. We deal with the same racial issues that the city deals with on a daily basis. And so we have found a way to build trust, to build relationships where people know where our heart is. And then we're going to stand on that value system, and we're not going to waver from it, or I'm not going to waver from it in coming in and dealing with city stuff. So I've learned enough to know that I know what has made me successful, and I'm going to stand on those principles that I believe in. And that's the way you do it. You don't, that's the way you make the city better. And that's why I'm running, and that's why I want to serve. Again, I'm fearful of the direction that we're going. I just don't see that with what some of the other candidates are running with and their positions on issues.
Well, we could talk about the police department all day, but there's a lot more we have to get to topic-wise. The board's at-large positions have always been a hot topic. Do you believe the board should be restructured?
You know, if you could start all over and start from scratch, you'd probably do a whole lot of different things. But I don't want to get into too deep of a conversation with that. I will say that we're at where we're at, and so we've got what we have, and we need to figure out the way to make it work the best. So if you have representation from each ward of the city, you have people that were elected by their local people there in that ward to represent their interest, and that's their job. So across the city with these wards, oftentimes opinions can be very divided. And I think the at-large position it's my job at the at-large position to come in and represent the city as a whole and not look at one pocket or one part, but to say, hey, what's best for Little Rock? And that's one reason why I'm running for an at-large position. Again, I've got restaurants all over the city. I care about Little Rock. I've lived in Otter Creek for 10 years in Southwest Little Rock and in one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the city. And I'm proud to say I loved it there. I own 3 houses there. I've invested in that community and have a restaurant there in Bass Pro. And I just bought a huge property there right there in Mableville. So right on I-30. So I think the at-large positions, part of their job is to help bring people together. You know, if you have one ward that has one value system and one thing that they're wanting to achieve and another ward has the other, you know, hopefully those at-large positions can help bridge that gap and help people say, hey, we agree on this and we agree on this and let's work on what we agree on instead of always getting caught up in fights. It's very frustrating to me. So there's a lot of things that we can do to get better. And another thing is, as far as that with the at-large positions, we've got to raise revenue. We've got to understand that when one business comes into one part of the city, that puts more money in the entire pot. And oftentimes we're jockeying for position for different parts of this. Well, I'm going to invest in this part of the city because, you know, it's this or that. And those reasons are valid. And I hear that. At the same time, it's not best for any part of the city to have less revenue. We've got concerns with our schools, with our safety, with our neighborhoods. And I believe Little Rock can be better. I believe our school system can be better. But if we're underfunded and we don't have the money, we're going to go in the wrong direction. We need funds and we need revenue, and we need someone that has a hospitality background to roll out the red carpet for business to come into Little Rock and to grow and be able to make deals with people, be able to understand how to work with homeowners associations, which is what I did on the planning commission for 6 years, and be able to say, hey, how can we work together to make a compromise here to get a development done here, whether it's a greater buffer to get something done to work with a homeowners association or maybe change ingress egress, you know. And I've got experience doing those things, whether it be with zoning and planning or site work, underground stormwater detention, with construction. I've built my own buildings. I've developed property. I've done huge site work projects. And I think that experience and understanding developers and where they're coming from is going to be important, and helping get things done and grow our economy and grow our jobs. And that we got to do that. So at-large positions are extremely important. And I think my background is unique to really help all different wards of the city and help grow our revenue and help our schools and our police and help us have a safer, better Little Rock.
Well, some board members have been vocal in recent months about a disconnect between the mayor's office and some members of the board. How do you plan on working with the executive office but still hold executive leadership accountable?
Mitch, you know, that you're exactly right. I had great hopes for unity in our board, and I think that's all the more reason to be able to not have an agenda set before you come in, as far as listening to things that may be outside of the interest of Little Rock, but to understand that Mayor Scott has some good ideas, that he wants to grow jobs, that he wants to do things to build our business, that he wants to see better schools. And so we've got to sit down, again, whether it's Mayor Scott or each Irma Hendricks or whatever ward it is, and say what it is, what is it that you have goals for your ward, And I agree with this goal. I agree with this goal. And I really don't necessarily agree with this goal. And how can I work together with you on your goals? And here's some of my goals. And let's work together to get a compromise done and make things happen. And it just changes the focus. And as the ball gets rolling, you begin to have success. You begin to change the culture. And that's how you do things. You establish goodwill. You establish relationships. You establish trust. You don't get things done just fighting all the time and focusing on things that you disagree with, and then trying to make the other person look bad or embarrass them in the public eye. So, and that's a lot of the tenor of what we have. And you're not going to see that from me. I'm not going to be trying to make a political statement. I'm going to be trying to get things done for our city in every ward that we have, trying to get greater investment all across our city to grow our revenue. So, again, I think that's one reason why I'm running, is that I can see how things could become more politically divided. And that's, most of the issues that we look at on a city level are not really related to being a Democrat or Republican. They're about which business is appropriate to go where, or how do we do this development, or what's the best way to help shape and grow our budget, or grow our revenue, and then how do we spend that best, allocate it for the city. It's not some of these overarching issues. And so there's no reason for us to really get into this and be divided unless we have other motives. And I don't have those motives. And I want to come in and listen and compromise and work together and work with the mayor. I like the mayor. He is a nice guy, and I've enjoyed having time with him, with meeting with my oldest son, and he was an encouragement to him. So anyway, I do think that I can work with people that I disagree with. I have to do that every day in business. I don't always agree with people in business, but we have to find out how to get a deal done and how to move forward and make things happen for our city. Mm-hmm. And I can do that.
Well, and we only have about 8 minutes left. We're keeping all the interviews within 25 minutes. We're halfway through the questions. Some would say the city has taken a significant effort to revitalize neighborhoods. Others would disagree, of course. How would you further efforts to revitalize neighborhoods?
The point's been made that we've got to do better with our parks. We've got to do better with our infrastructure. We've got to do better with doing just the little things. At David's, we say we do the little things right. And if you work on those, if you demonstrate humility to work on the next thing that you can do and do your best at it, rather than always look for the big thing to do, those things culminate. They build a culture, they build a lifestyle, they build habits. And when you work on these little things, whether it be in picking up the trash or cleaning up the city or making sure everyone's trash gets picked up, and working on the little details with the police department, all of these things matter, and they culminate and they do things. And again, you get good momentum when you begin to see success in these areas. So investing in the community is going to be important. Our infrastructure needs to be improved. Oftentimes we've got to look for better opportunities for housing. And does the city have adequate infrastructure for starter homes? And those types of things need to be addressed by the city. And, I get frustrated with patchwork improvements. You can go through the city, for example, and just see patches of sidewalk. And if you were to walk on that sidewalk, you might walk for 100 meters and then the sidewalk would dead end. So from an infrastructure standpoint, we have to have a more unified approach that actually has some benefit to the city. We have to be smarter with our planning and how to use our dollars. We have to do better with our public-private partnership. In a lot of cases, we need to allow in lieu dollars. What I mean by that is if a developer wants to come in and develop something and the city is only going to get a patchwork piece of property developed for their infrastructure, we need to say, hey, we need to put this money and take it in a pot. And then instead of doing a 500 foot of improvements here, let's come back later on down the road and do the whole thing at once when it's much more efficient to do that. Do those improvements all at one time. And these types of issues are not what most of the other candidates have experience on. I'm the one that's had to pay for things that I didn't necessarily think were fruitful for the city. And I thought it would be a much more prudent and economical to put that money in a pot and then come back later and then use it, or use that money now for something else and then come back later and do some type of improvement citywide. So just being smart. But again, I think the biggest issue for a lot of these things is a lot of us agree on what needs to be done, and those areas of improvement are obvious. The biggest difference is how to do it, and how to do it is raise revenue. And if we continue to have a city that's viewed as unsafe, that people don't want to come to shop, or people don't want to live in, or people don't feel like their kids can go to school in, we're going in the wrong direction. I mean, it's just that simple. I don't know how to make it any more clear. And we need leadership that can help grow our revenue, keep our city safe, do the next little thing right, not get caught up on these big objectives that don't help Little Rock. And we can do better.
Well, and you've opened up another door.
It really
here.
isn't. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, and you've opened up another door, and I just want to, we're at the 5-minute mark. People have voiced concerns about a racial divide, specifically using I-630 as reference between poor neighborhoods, middle class, and upper class neighborhoods. What part will you have to unite the city?
Well, and again, I think we've got to be smart with that. It's obvious that there's areas of town that have been neglected and that need to be invested in. At the same time, we can't say that, hey, and you hear this from other candidates, we can't invest in this area of town because we need to invest in the Black community. And I agree that we need to invest in the Black community, but we've got to be smart. We've got to come in and say, hey, if this development comes in and it raises revenue and it's a shopping center or some other development that allows people to come in and create jobs and increase tax revenue, that we're not going to invest in that area because it's a white area, that hurts the city, that hurts the Black community, that hurts the city as a whole. And so I'm not going to get caught up in some of these racial fights that are for, again, I serve the community. I serve people hamburgers every day. And I would say probably half our customers are Black, and I love them. And we have a lot of fun and we joke around, and these types of common sense sentiments, whether it be with training with the police, not investing in our police, or in my opinion, and the people that I talk, they want common sense solutions. They don't want some type of political platform. So
if you're
that's not what we need.
If you're elected, what will you do to improve the quality of life for every citizen?
You know, again, I think one of the biggest things is raise revenue. If you've got more money, you can improve your park system throughout the city. If you've got more money, you can improve the infrastructure throughout the city. You've got more money to rehab areas of the city that where maybe houses need to be torn down, where we need to make room for some developer to be able to come along and say, hey, this land looks like it could be bought and maybe redeveloped into something that would work well. So I think some of it is maybe as simple as that, because no matter what part of the city it is, we have to have the money to be able to make those changes. And our budget, if you look at our budget, we're going in the wrong direction with our budget. So, and safety helps all parts of the city. If we have a healthy police force that is fair and well-trained and well-equipped and held accountable and does things right, a safe city is a better Little Rock. So all across the city, we've got to invest in our police force and make sure that we have the very best police officers. We can't say, hey, I want to limit my applicant pool. And this is going on right now. This is a talk that needs to happen. Are we going to require a police force to live in Little Rock? And I'd love for everyone to live in Little Rock, but the common sense says we need the best police officer no matter where he lives. We need the widest applicant pool that we can get and be able to select those applicants that are the best, the ones that can handle pressure, the ones that are not going to react with violence, the ones that are the most trained and the sharpest, not just ones that live in Little Rock. We had almost or probably historic low numbers of applicants for the police force. And we have police officers leaving left and right that are good police officers to go into other places because the culture is so poor. So we need to have a commitment to coming in and making sure that our police officers are well trained, well equipped, have the technology that they need, and are held accountable. You can't do that by taking money away from the police department. So that's another issue that I'm passionate about. A safe city helps the whole city.
Well, and I don't want to cut you off, but again, we have really just 60 seconds left. So I'm going to pack these two questions in, and we're going to have to wrap up. If elected, your term would consist of rebuilding the city's economy after the COVID-19 global health pandemic. Many businesses have been forced to close. What kind of experience do you have to ensure Little Rock not only bounces back, but grows to a new height? That's question one. Question two, in recent years, the city announced a financial struggle, which you touched on just a moment ago, which caused layoffs and park closures. If elected, what will you do to ensure the city avoids future layoffs and other closures? And again, I want to give you time to answer those two questions, but we are at the maximum time.
Okay. Thank you. So with COVID, I don't know that any industry has been hit. Maybe there are, but the restaurants have been hit hard. I have restaurants that were formerly dine-in only restaurants, and you have seen restaurants that are dine-in only close at an unbelievable rate. And so we've had to pivot. We've had to pivot, and even if we've had to run the food out, create a drive-through with an awning, and completely revamp our technology. And that's the experience that I have, is being able to think and say, hey, what's a good common sense solution, and how can we bring an answer to this problem and still retain revenue? So our revenue, we've had to close our River Market location because it's dine-in only, and it's small and it's packed. And the market hall there is closed as well. But with our 8 locations, our revenue is actually a little bit up year over year. And that's because we know how to handle problems, and we're smart, and we create solutions. And I've got a great team working for me that I empowered and turn them loose. So that's the type of experience that I'm going to bring as far as with these COVID closures, with the community, working with business leaders, working with the Urban League, working with different parts of people all over the city to help create solutions. I just want to see Little Rock do better and be better. And work towards that, and work with people, be a listener. I think that's very important. Having people have input. If you go into something and you say, this is the plan, and you force it on people, they're much less likely to buy in and push it forward. If you come into a situation and say, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Oh, that's a good idea. What are your thoughts? Oh, that's a good idea. And then bring those in. You bring people together, and you can get a plan moving and get support behind it to get it done. And that's not happening. And that's not what we see happening. So same thing that with my company. I don't go in and tell everybody what to do. I go, well, what do you think we need to do? And I get buy-in, and people love doing it. And that's why you see the pep in their step, is because they're involved in the solution. And it's the same thing with closures and layoffs. I think we've got to be smart with our money, and understand, the things that we're doing, whether it be with Resume Golf Course and, the other golf courses in the city, War Memorial that's been closed down, and how to redevelop that, and how to do that, how to create income. Do we want to, as a city, be a real estate holder and investor, or do we want to take funds and use them in different ways to self-serve our city? So we've got a lot of potential. We've got a lot of opportunity, especially there with War Memorial, to be able to do something great for a city right in the heart of the city that would help the city as a whole. So being able to work with the homeowners there in that area and get their input and buy-in, raising revenue, I keep going back to that, but it's just so critical to be able to get deals done and put things together to where we can not be fighting over things and lose opportunities, especially with a great property like that one.
Thank you so much for your time today. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I just, I want to say that, again, that I'm running for this job because I was fearful that our city is going in the wrong direction. And I'm invested in this city. I love this city. My family's here. I've got a 2-year-old here. I'm not looking for a political career. I just want to see my kids grow up in a great city, and I want to see our city go in the right direction. And I hope you'll vote for me.
Thank you again. Election Day, November 3rd, folks. And remember, KRK.com, Fox16.com. We are your local election headquarters leading up to Election Day and on Election Day. Take care.